Roger, Roger. Now check your frequency. You sound like you might be a tad high.
I'm on 7.18900.
Roger, Roger. Sounds good. Sounds good now. Must, again, my dyslexic ears. Roger, Roger.
No, you were correct. I was .05 off.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, it sounded just a tad warm on the high side, but good morning, and tell me about your station there.
Good morning again. The name is Dick, Delta India Charlie Kilo. I'm in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I'm running an ICOM 7300, about 90 watts out into an end-fed multi-beam antenna, only about 15 or 20 feet off the ground. We have a small city lot, so we're kind of limited. Back to you.
Roger, Roger there, Dick. I'm receiving you at about 2 to 3 dB above my noise level. This is typical for this band at this time of the morning, with about 90 to 100 watts at about 300 or so miles away. Roger, Roger.
Got it. You're 5.9 plus 10. 5.9 plus 10 into Fredericksburg.
Roger, Roger. Now, you do have the radio of choice by multitudinous amounts of people. That is the most beautiful radio of the hour, Roger.
It is. I had been working at Kenwood TS140S until 2 weeks ago. And I had been off the ham bands, the HS bands, for about 20 years. So I came back and I got the antenna working and the Kenwood was working nicely. But then I saw one of these things and it's magic.
Oh, Roger, Roger. Now, I don't want you to tell me exactly what you paid for it, but could I assume it was under $1,000?
It was about 50 under 1,000, 50 under 1,000 with all the rebates.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, that's a great deal for that radio. And that radio, as I understand it, that radio turned out to be like number 12 in a list of best radios out in a California shop. And you know, this was against radios twice and 3 times or 4 times the amount of money that is involved with that ICOM 7300. Roger?
Alone is worth the money. You can nail any signal on the band in seconds.
Oh, Roger, Roger, yeah. And so now, if you could just find a kilowatt in your closet, oh, you would be taking people's heads off.
I came from a place where I had an antenna on a 65-foot tower, and I could work the world, of course. That was 20 years ago. So I'm dreaming if I had this radio with an antenna, life would be great.
Roger, well, I'll tell you, when conditions are good, which I've not found on this band in the 4 months that I've been running at this time on this frequency. But when conditions are good, you know, you could probably bounce in with say 90 or 100 watts, bounce in 300, 400 miles away with maybe a 9 or a plus 10, you know. I mean, if the band is in good shape. But lately, you know, 90 watts and 300 miles will buy you about 2 to 3 dB above somebody's noise level. Like I say, at this time on this band, because conditions are not good. Roger?
That's true. For example, this morning on 20, I worked Poland, and I worked on this radio with the power I have. I'm sure these guys have big ears on the other end. I'm sure of that. But I've been getting some halfway decent signal reports from Europe.
Roger, Roger. I see you now at about maybe a maximum of 4 dB above my noise level. Yeah, and what happens is, you know, the normal reflective layer that this band gets involved with is just not very fat right now. And so, you know, if you're doing a 90 to 100 watts and you're only giving somebody 300 or 400 miles away a 2 or 3, Well, where is that power going? It's not going to where you want it to go. It's going out into space. And as it goes out into space, it crosses through other layers. And those other layers do from time to time bend the signal back. The problem is that those other layers are in higher altitudes. And so when they bend the signal back, it joins the primary, although weak, signal, at the far distant point. But the problem is it comes back with a time difference, because this other layer is further out that may be reflecting it. And what happens is you have atmospheric distortions caused by the reflective signals and the other layers melting with the primary, which is of a very low level. Roger, Roger?
Got it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you have that little delta time, and it does distort the signal for you.
So anyway, Dick, you're doing really well with that radio, and I think you will love that radio. The more you use it, the more you will love that 7300, Roger.
Well, it's taking me a good bit of time, actually, to get through it and to understand everything that's going on with it. But it has a nice bunch of filters. It has a nice little tuner, and I was coming from a 35-year-old radio, so big difference in technology.
Roger, Roger, Dick. Yeah, I just came off. I was running an attenuate, about a 12 to 15 dB attenuate, and the signal is, so marginal. The band is so marginal at this point. I usually run the antenna and attenuate, but with marginal signals like we have this morning, I'm going to dump that. Roger, Roger. Gosh, you're now about dB and a half to 2 dB above the noise level. Roger. Well, Dick, let me say threes to you, sir. You have faded down now, but maybe we can get together later. I will be posting this QSO-VLOG on my YouTube page. If you want to hear what we got this morning, you can go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor will take you to the QSO page, and this QSO will be entitled My Group Aircheck, and the date 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. So it will be the QSO will be entitled My Group Aircheck. Can't read my writing here. 10/5/18. And the frequency 7189. Roger, Roger.
Very good, Jim. The other amazing thing about this radio is when I'm looking for stations or a little bit of frequency, I can record the QSO and then verify I've got the right call in the book. Back to you.
Oh, Roger, yes, it has some very nice features. Roger, Roger.
It does. Well, Jim, I'll let you go. I'll say 7-3s. I'll pick you up on your YouTube posting then. This is Kilo Bravo 4, Golf Echo Yankee, clear with you on your final.
Roger, Roger, Dick. Threes that way. Come back one more time with your location. I'm sorry, your signal's dropped down below my noise level. Try one more time, please.
Fredericksburg, Virginia. Fredericksburg, Virginia. QSO?
Roger, Roger, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Thank you so much, Dick. Appreciate that, sir. And threes to you. Have a real good day. And we will be posting this within the next couple of days. Roger.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one, sir. KB4G, right clear.
Roger, Roger. Threes, Dick. Catch you later. It's KC9VKV with the Friday morning QSO-VLOG program. If you have a radio you want to check the audio on, give us a shout. We are recording, and then we'll be posting it on YouTube within the next couple of days, so you'll be able to go there and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, and that will take you to the our QSO-VLOG page, and on that page you will find an entity called My Group Aircheck, dated 10/5/18, frequency 7189. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. I think I hear somebody back in there. The problem is you are below my noise level. I think I could hear somebody back in there, but you were below my noise level. Try it again, though. Maybe conditions will come up a little bit. Two stations in there. I think one was a Mike 0.
This is Alpha 3, Golf Mike Kilowatt.
Alpha 3 Golf Mike Kilowatt, is that a Roger?
Roger.
Roger, Roger, sir. You are about 2 dB above my noise level. Where might you be, sir? In Ontario, is that correct? Repeat the last. Roger, Roger, sir. Well, you're for Ontario, you're doing rather well. I should have recognized that by the A3 call sign prefix, Roger.
Okay, well, not a lot of these out in the Americas know quite our calls. It's like your calls confuse me too, your K's, your whatever, you know.
Roger, KC9, Kilo Charlie 9, which is for my region here. We're located near Louisville, Kentucky, but we're located just across the river from Louisville. We're about 3 miles from downtown Louisville on the Indiana side of the Ohio River, right at Louisville, Roger.
I'm located here, westerly direction, around 90 kilometers west of Toronto, Ontario.
Roger, Roger. Well, tell me a little bit about your radio there, sir.
Right now I'm running this at 100 watts. It's the Kenwood TS480 FAT DSP.
Roger, Roger. Well, for 100 watts in Ontario, Canada, you're doing real well. I wonder what the distance is between you and I in Louisville, Roger. Roger, Roger. Well, what's the name down that way or up that way?
First name is George. Golf Echo, Oscar Romeo Golf Echo, George.
Roger, Roger, George. Well, listen, sir, I appreciate you checking in there. Like I say, I just have a little bit of coffee on you, about 2 dB above my noise level, but you are making the trip, Roger. Roger, Roger, and we will be posting this QSO on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will open up our QSO-VLOG page, and we do have about 250 QSOs at the moment. But on that QSO page somewhere you will see a session called My Group Airchecks, and the date 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. So that will be this QSO, Roger. Roger, Roger. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. Yeah, I didn't hear you back. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. Roger, Roger.
I put her down on a paper log here. I'll get you added onto my QSO page. Down for 11 o'clock on 7189.
Roger, Roger. And we say 3 is up that way, sir. Like again, conditions are not good on this band, and you were just 2 to 3 dB above my noise level. But hey, we were talking, so there you go. 3 is up that way, George. You have a good day. This is Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor. Stand by. Okay, other station calling. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor.
Good morning, November Uniform 4 Romeo. November Uniform 4 Romeo.
November 4. November Uniform 4 Romeo, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Good morning. November Uniform 4 Romeo. And this is Greg. Golf Romeo Echo Golf Greg. Ocala, Florida. We're about 100 miles north of Orlando, QSO.
Roger. What's your location again?
Ocala, Florida. It's about 100 miles north of Orlando, south of Gainesville, QSO.
Roger. Well, my hometown is West Palm Beach, Florida, and so I know where Ocala is. And you're sounding real good there. And what's the name?
Okay, the name is Greg, Golf Romeo Echo Golf, and we are just in the final moments of repairing my buddy's old, well, not that old, but an old Kenwood TS-830 alignment and things like that. I love these old radios, QSO.
Oh, Roger, Roger. Well, that's still transistor. That's not back to a tube type, Roger.
Tube final for transmission. It's a hybrid and solid state receiver, but this darn radio it outperforms my 7610 for receive. These things are just amazing. I love them.
Oh, Roger, Roger. Well, you have an extremely durable final there. I think tubes are so much more forgiving than transistors as far as life expectancy under adverse conditions, Roger?
Absolutely. And considering the antenna we're using, a big delta loop in the front yard, a big delta loop, we're doing okay. We're in retirement and putting up antennas everywhere, making the XYL crazy.
Roger, Roger. Now looking at my view meter, I see you're now about 6 dB above my noise level, so things tend to be improving down towards Ocala, Roger.
Roger, we had great band conditions today, and as a matter of fact, I was able to get Christmas Island on 40 PW, and I can't believe that still, but the conditions up to about half an hour ago were just amazing, Roger.
Roger. Now your output power is, you're running barefoot about 90 to 100 watts?
Yes, sir, into a four-wave delta loop.
Roger, Roger. Now how big is that delta loop?
Oh boy, I have to get the measurements out again, but it's a total of about 365 feet of wire. Each side over 100 feet, and it's fed with ladder line, 450 ohm ladder line, and requires a 5-to-1 balance. It's been a great project. I love wire antennas.
Oh, Roger, Roger. I think wire antennas are probably the best bet, I mean, the whole thing, HF radio is based on skywave reflection. So I think a wire can get it up in the air just as well almost as a beam. The only advantage possibly of a beam would be the directionality of the received signal possibly, and a little gain forward, but the majority of the signal is skywave bounce on HF, Roger?
Absolutely, James, absolutely. And I really can't recall any station that I haven't haven't been able to eventually get over the years on my wires and things like that. Just have a great time. And recently retired, so I have a good supply of wire around. And actually, I just built a couple of 6-meter antennas, and just trying to have fun in retirement.
Oh, Roger, yes, I know. Being a Floridian, I know about the fun in the sun, you know. And I know that I have forgotten about all of the mosquitoes and all of the afternoon rain. Does it rain there every afternoon?
You know, James, finally, this summer, this season, we had that typical Florida rain in north central Florida. Over the years, it really hasn't been like that. But this was a typical Florida kind of year, if you know what I mean.
Oh, Roger. Well, being from West Palm, you know, I can recall as a mere kid that you could count on it raining every afternoon around 2 to 4 o'clock. I mean, it was like almost like clockwork. Of course, you know, that is, West Palm is right there on the coast, you know. Well, listen, Greg, we do have somebody that is exercising extreme poor taste in tuning up on the frequency. So let me say threes to you down there in Ocala, Greg. You have a real good day. Roger.
Yes, sir. Yes, have a great day.
Roger, Greg. And like I say, we are recording on our QSO-VLOG recorder. And we will be posting this QSO on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube in the next couple of days and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our QSO-VLOG page. And there will be one entity there called My Group Airchecks, and it will be dated 10/5/18. And the frequency 7189. So that will be the main QSO for this QSO-VLOG recording. So you have a real good day there, Greg, and good to hear you from Ocala. Roger.
Good deal, sir. Nice to meet you, my friend, and have a great weekend. November Uniform 4 Romeo.
Roger. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, and we are on the air from Montreal to Miami and from New York to New Mexico. So if you have a station that you want to check the audio on, give us a shout and we'll record it and post it later on YouTube. This is KC9VKV. I've got one station out there that is below my noise level. I can hear you out there, but I can't make out what you're saying. So maybe later on conditions will change and we'll be able to make contact. But right now you are under my noise level. Let me give you an example. I'll drop down to 100 watts. This is 100 watts. Right here is 100 watts, so you can see exactly what kind of signal you may be giving me. And now we're back to a kilowatt. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor with the Friday morning QSO-VLOG session. If you have a radio you want to check the audio on, give us a shout. We'll record it and post it later on YouTube. It's KC9VKV.
November Alpha 3 Papa.
November Alpha 3 Papa. This is KC9VKV.
Yeah, KC9VKV from November Alpha 3 Papa, running about 10 watts with my KX3 on my back deck here in Culpeper, Virginia. My name is Dick, Delta India Charlie Kilo Dick, and here's the QSO I made from my new QB here in Culpeper. We've lived here about 2 weeks now, and just came down from Oakville, which is about 6 miles northeast of here. And we just set up a little wire on the back porch here and have it drooping across the backyard. So everything sounds good on this end. Low noise if this new QTA goes.
So we're located near Louisville, Kentucky. We're just across the river from Louisville, about 3 miles from downtown. We're on the Indiana side of the mighty Ohio River. And you were mentioning what kind of power you're running?
I'm running 10 watts on my KX3, LSF KX3 over.
Roger, roger. Well, I get you now about maybe 2 or 3 dB above my noise level. So, you know, good modulation is the key to that lower power. So if you stay right up in that microphone, you will be maximizing your capabilities of the 10 watts. Roger, roger. So you have faded down to about a half a dB above my noise level now. You are about half a dB above my noise level that last transmission. So let me say threes to you, Dick. And we are recording this as a QSO-VLOG, and we'll be posting it on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our QSO-VLOG page. And on that page, there will be one QSO marked My Group Aircheck 10518 with a frequency of 7189. And there will be proof, Dick, that your 10 watts reached my QTH. Roger?
Very good. If you log world or E2SL, I don't have a pen out handy out here to write all that down, but if you log me, I can hook you up and hopefully I can remember. You check my audio on that website. Sounds interesting. I wish I could show you pictures. I'm just sitting here on the back porch, back deck here on a cloudy but not rainy morning here in Culpeper. It's a nice, cool morning. 73 and have fun out there in St. Louis. This is NA3P, portable QRP in Culpeper.
Roger, roger, Dick. Well, you've got a couple of options as far as making note of my call sign. Number one, if you have any dusty places, you can write in the dust my call sign, or if you're really dedicated, you could, prick your finger and write it in blood. It is what it is. Three's that way, Dick. You have a good day, sir. That 10 watts is coming in fine. This is KC9VKV with the Friday Morning QSO-VLOG program. If you've got a radio you want to check the audio on, give us a shout. We'll be recording, and then we'll post it later on YouTube within the next couple of days. KC9VKV.
Okay, KC9VKV, Victory King Victory. Over there, Kansas City 9, Victory King Victory. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you later from North America 3 Pacific.
That KC9 station, repeat your call sign again? Oh, that was my station. Oh, boy, I need another cup of coffee. What was that last station that transmitted this away?
KK4NGQ.
Is that Nancy, what was that? KK4, Nancy what?
Kilo 4, November, Golf, Quebec.
Roger, roger, sir. And where might you be located, sir? KK4NGQ, this is KC9VKV. Stolen by gypsies. This is Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor with the Friday Morning QSO-VLOG recording. If you have a radio that you want to check out the audio on, give us a shout. We are recording, and we will post the QSO-VLOG on YouTube within the next couple of days. And you can go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor. That will take you to our QSO-VLOG page, and on that page you'll find a QSO entitled My Group Aircheck, date 10/5/18 with a frequency of 7189. KC9VKV.
Kilo 4, November, Golf, Quebec.
Why, he's back. I thought we had some kind of fade out there, sir.
Kilo 9, Papa Charlie.
Papa Charlie Station, stand by just a minute. I'm trying to establish contact with Kilo 4, November Golf, Quebec, but sometimes he disappears.
This is Kilo 4, November Golf, Quebec. Couldn't tell for sure. I thought maybe you were acknowledging another station. Go ahead.
No, sir, I've used your call sign 3 or 4 times, sir. I was just thinking we were having bad conditions. Do you have a good copy on me, sir?
I have a great copy on you. Can't give you an estimator rating, but it's at least S9. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger. Well, that's close enough for me. Close enough for me. And what's the name and where are you, sir?
This is Kilo 4, November Golf, Quebec. The name here is Richard, and we're 10 miles north of Columbia, South Carolina.
Roger, Roger. Now, Richard, you are arriving here just a tad distorted, but you know, as I pointed out before, when conditions are poor, those when you're radiating 100 watts or 90 watts or so, and conditions are poor, well, that means that your power is not getting to where you want. So what's happening is your power is going up into the atmosphere and passing through the main layer that would reflect it normally to have good conditions, and it continues on up to hit its other layers, and those other layers may reflect back down to Earth some of your signal, and the problem is that it comes back a little out of phase with the what should be the quote primary reflective layer, and that introduces a tad bit of distortion because you're talking about the reflection from 2 different heights. So there's a time differential between the upper layer and the primary layer, and so when they come back and coincide with each other, they do cause certain audio distortions because of the time delay factor. And we're not talking years or hours or minutes or even maybe 30 seconds. It might be a mere a second or a quarter of a second, but there does represent some problems of audio distortion because the two are coinciding at different reflection levels.
Hey, Roger, understood. And do we sound any better now? I made a slight adjustment here.
Still sounds just a tad ripply, but your signal is, you're basically like about 8 dB above my noise level, Roger.
Roger, we appreciate it. Did you get the name and QTH when I gave it to you?
Yes, sir. Richard, I believe it was, and you're around Columbia, where?
10 miles north of Columbia, South Carolina.
I thought it would be South Carolina, but sometimes my take of South Carolina and North Carolina might be different. I spent a little time in Fayetteville, North Carolina, around Fort Bragg Pope Air Force Base, not as a member of the military, but as a civilian working at some of the broadcast stations in that area. Roger?
Yeah, Roger. Well, wish I could have met you while you were there, but circumstances prevented it. Okay, now we'll let you go and let you get to some of the other stations that's trying to get to you. I'm sure some of them sound much better than I do. So you have a great day. KK4NGQ, 73.
Roger, Richard 3's that away, sir, and thank you so much for checking in. And again, I will be posting this recording on our QSO-VLOG within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our QSO-VLOG page, and on that page you'll find a session called My Group Airchecks, the date 10/5/18 and the frequency 7189. So 3 Thanks, Richard. We'll catch you later. You have a good day. This is KC9VKV.
Hey, Roger. Have a good one.
And this is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor with the Friday morning QSO-VLOG program. If you have a radio you want to check out the audio on, give us a shout. And we will be recording and then uploading it to YouTube within the next couple of days, so you can go there and hear your audio. KC9VKV.
November 8, Bravo, Echo, Germany.
November 8, Bravo what?
Bravo, Echo, Germany. It ain't BEG. My name is Rob. I'm in Michigan, over.
Roger, Roger, Rob. Sounded really good, sir. What's your radio and setup?
I'm running portable. I'm battery power right now in Bel Air, Michigan, and we're running an FT991A. I've only had it a couple weeks, and the antenna is a full-size dipole here, fed with open wire line, with ladder line actually. And I'm up on a hill here, about 265 feet, on a private campsite up above Lake Bel Air, and quite a view here. Yeah, I'm in my camper, a 21-foot Gulfstream, and we've got a generator out there, but she's not on. And commonly we'll run solar power, but no sun today. Quite a bit of damp weather here. Light rain is falling. Over.
Roger, Roger. Now, was that Rob, R-O-B, Rob?
Radio Oscar Bravo. Yeah, that's correct. And your name, sir?
The name here is Jim, Juliet India Mike, and we're located just across the Ohio River from Louisville, Kentucky. We're on the Indiana side of the Ohio River, right at Louisville. Roger?
Yeah, Roger, know exactly where you're at there. Driven through there many times. So I got the name, you said Jim. I'm trying to write everything down, and VKV is the code 9. I think it's Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor. Am I right?
Oh, that is 100% correct. 100% correct. And what is your output power at the moment, sir?
Well, we're set at full power, so I'm going to speculate with probably 85, 90 watts or so.
Oh, well, you're doing a great job. Great job. And what is your location one more time?
Bel Air, Michigan. Bel Air, one word, 2 L's. And we are in the northwest corner of the lower peninsula, about 5 miles inland from the shore, on the key, from the shore of Lake Michigan, Jim, and northeast of Traverse City, Michigan, about 40 miles. Copy?
Oh, roger that, sir. Roger that. That's a hot radio for 90 watts. Was that right?
Yeah, about 90. I'm guessing about 90 because I'm on battery power, and although I'm using a switching power supply through an inverter right now to try to keep the voltage peaked. Just to put a log up, we'll throw, yeah, it looks like about 90 watts, I'm going to guess is right. Over.
Oh, roger that. Well, it's doing you a great job, and you must be parked at just the right place, Roger.
Oh, it's a good spot, especially looking south. Of course, propagation doesn't seem too bad today. So that helps a lot, and you're a good first hop for me into that area of southern Ohio. So all that stuff adds up for us. How does the audio sound on this rig? I've never really set it up or monitored it at all. Over.
It's really close. My personal taste would be a couple of clicks down on the low side and a couple of clicks up on the high side EQ-wise. Not much either way, Roger, but just a tad off the bottom and a tad more on the top, Roger.
Okay, a little, put a couple more locks in the kid's pocket on this teeter-totter there, and we'll swing the bottom down and the highs up. Yeah, okay, I think I'll trim that. Appreciate the input on it. Again, FT991A, and I'm starting to really fall in love with this radio. It is well laid out, it's pleasing to look at, good sound, and it's great on CW, so all that stuff adds up. I bought it to use, Jim, primarily here in the camper because it's kind of a ham shack in the box. covering VHF, UHF, HF, all together, and that's what it's for. But I'm beginning to think I might want to have it at the base station because I enjoy using it that much. The home rig's an FT950, and I think we're going to sell that and possibly pick up an IC7 7300 for the base. But anyways, loving this little Yaesu here. Anyway, Jim, I'll let you go. I know you're trying to pick up folks there, and you're doing the recording thing with them, so that's great. And we got you in the log here, Portable 8 from Jennifer Hill is the exact location I'm on, Jennifer Hill in Bel Air, Michigan. 73, Jim, from KC9VKV from November 8, Bravo Echo Golf, Portable 8.
Roger, Rob. You know, Yaesu has a way of regurgitating their model numbers. I am running a Yaesu 990. The difference is my 990 is about 35 years older, and so they just pull those numbers back. You know, it's unusual. I mean, not unusual, but it's just amazing that they can't find new numbers. You know, and so it does represent sometimes a little complication or. You know, you wonder when you say a 990, is it is it the new or is it the old? Well, in this case, it's the old. But anyway, threes to you there, Rob. You are sounding good, and you know what you could do? I would get that 7300 myself if I had the cash. I would get the 7300 and a couple of straps, and I would strap that 7300 to my leg, and then wherever I went, I would have that 7300 to run on. Roger?
Yeah, you better get like a 14 AVQ vertical or something strapped to your back there. Yeah, you'd be in shape there. Pedestrian mobile. Yeah, good deal. Well, we're seriously considering buying one. I've cleaned up the FT950. Nothing wrong with the 950, other than the fact that I've had it a few years. And I want something different in the shack, and so we picked up this 991 here for the trailer to replace the FT897, which is right now sitting below it, but that's what the 991's doing. And I want something new in the shack, so I cleaned up the FT950 a little bit, and I'm going to sell it and an MD100 base mic probably for a very, very fair price, move it out, and when that happens, so I'll invest in that 7300. It'd be fun playing with that at the home station. Anyway, yeah, and I like Yaesu. I don't intentionally buy Yaesu gear. I just, whenever I go shopping, I look for the best rig that suits my needs, and I'll be darned if it doesn't keep going back to Yaesu. And they win it by a nod here and there, so I end up buying a lot of Yaesu gear, but do have others. I have Icon gear at home in Kenwood as well, but anyway, I'm rattling on here. Good talking with you, Jim. You sound great here in northern Michigan, and the battery power is dancing up and down around 12.2 over there. Probably go out and turn the generator on in a bit. Too bad there's no sun. My solar panels will keep me on the air all day long without having to burn gas, but not going to be so lucky today with the rain showers. 73 N8BEG battery power portable. Bye-bye.
Roger, Rob. Three's that away, and you were talking about Yaesu, but I tell you that ICOM 7300 is going to give them a run for the money, and as I understand it, that 7300 is below $1,000 right now, so it's I think that's a great deal to have 7300 for that price. So three's to you, Rob, and like I say, you are in the ideal geographic location for the bounce here. Last time I looked, you were almost 10 dB above my noise level. So 3's Rob, catch you later. And this is KC9VKV, and we'll be posting this QSO-VLOG on YouTube within the next couple of days. And so if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our QSO-VLOG page, and on that page there will be a QSO entitled My Group Aircheck, and the date 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. So 3's Rob, catch you later. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor.
All right, 7-3, 59410, Jim, just if I didn't give you a report. N8BEG, clear.
And there was another station calling. Go ahead, station.
KD9FTC.
Yankee November, he said, go ahead.
The KD9 station, come back.
Kilo Delta 9er, Foxtrot Papa.
Yeah, if you want to pick a frequency, we'll move off and let Jim take this one, okay? Down 5, N8BEG, QSY 184.
Roger, roger. All right, and the KD9 FP, one more time on the that last part of the call sign. Foxtrot Papa Charlie, roger.
Name here, Tom, Tango Oscar Mike, QTH, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Roger, Tom in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I have you just a couple of dB above my noise level. Let me drop down to 100 watts, and I'll give you an idea of your signal to me at 100 watts. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, running at 100 watts at KC9VKV. And back to you at KW. Roger, roger.
Roger that. Yeah, I'm running a straight 100 watts and a Kenwood 90 SG, 100 watts, up a 43-foot vertical. So, got you a good solid, when you're running a KW, got you a good solid 5.9, drops to about a 5.6 when you drop back to 100 watts, but still readable, over.
Roger, roger, and I copy you from time to time at 7 dB or so above my noise level. So it just depends on those conditions in and out, but your max was 7 dB above my noise level. So tell me about your radio, sir.
Kenwood 590 SG, 100 watter. Love it. Had it for a few years now and does a really nice job. Over.
Roger that. And what kind of antenna are you running?
43-foot vertical today, and that's a vertical by 05 antenna out of Chicago.
Roger, roger. Now, do you have any other antennas that you could possibly A/B the response differences between that vertical and the horizontal?
That would be great. I'm in the midst of the tree rats took down my dipole, and I'm in the midst of putting up a new one. Should be up and running with that by tomorrow. But for today, just working the vertical, over.
Roger that, roger that. We'll get you a good A/B switch there. I'm just curious myself. I'm of the theory that most of the incoming, and there's no book that says this, I don't think, but my conviction is that most of my incoming stuff is on the horizontal plane more than the vertical plane. Now, I know in UHF and VHF that if you start off vertically polarized on, say, VHF, well, 400, 300 miles away, that polarization tends to remain the same. On VHF, if you start vertically, there's a good chance that you will be more vertical at 300 miles with conditions than it will be horizontal. But I think on the HF band, I've seen more, what looks like more on the horizontal side than on the vertical side. Roger, roger?
Roger that. I would agree. The takeoff angle on this antenna is pretty decent. But that said, particularly as I get down in the bands, like say 80 meters, it tends to want to skip right over the local and keep heading out. I can talk out east all day long, but I couldn't get somebody 5 blocks from my house, so it skipped right over anything nearby. It would be nice actually to have some horizontal or a real flat takeoff. Thinking about maybe putting NVIS wire antenna up on the roof or something to get a good flat signal here in town. Over.
Roger that, roger that. Well, you know, with that AB switch, you'll be able to constantly compare the incoming. And I'm sure you'll find out that, well, there is mostly horizontal. There will be times when vertical will be hotter. At least, you know, I have about 2 years of experience on 10 meters when I first started off as a technician and had certain restrictions. I could operate on 10 meters. So I spent my first 2 years on 10 meters, and I did develop 3 fairly good antennas for 10 meters. I built a full wave 36-foot loop antenna. This was RG6, I think, strung around a PVC form that was 10 foot on the horizontal and 8 foot on the vertical, and it was vertically polarized with a rotor and driven from the top, and I could rotate that around. And I recall just, you know, for those 2 years, man, I talked to California about every day. And the interesting thing I found about that full wave loop antenna was how quiet it was. You know, if you hook up a quarter wave antenna to a radio, you have X number of signal to noise ratio levels. You know, it is what it is with a quarter wave. Then if you go to say a dipole, you have about half that noise. And then when you go to a loop antenna, which is a DC ground antenna, because the loop comes back and it is a DC ground, the noise level is so reduced. It's you know, triple the less noise than what a quarter wave vertical would be. And so I recall sometimes, you know, I had a rotary switch that those antennas came into, and I could go back and forth, and I could check 3 antennas in a quarter of a second. I mean, you may not believe it, but a rotary switch is unbelievably fast. And if you're just listening to white noise as you know, zing past, I could probably check you know, 3 antennas twice in a second. And listening to that white noise, you could tell which one was performing the best. Roger, roger. This is a Heathkit SB220. Heathkit SB220 up to an inverted V. And we have 3 inverted Vs up on the tower at about 35 feet. And we have an unusual tuning method for our inverted Vs in that we do the SWR adjustments on the ground side of the inverted V, and we bring it back on frequency on the high side of the inverted V. And we go back and forth to the point that those 3 inverted V's are running 1.01 to 1. Roger?
Roger, yeah, that's awesome. The 43-foot but it's got a nice 5-block transformer that they include with it, and I can pretty well bring anything in here and actually put it through the tuner on the Kenwood. My next objective is a good solid 160 antenna, but I said to this day I can hear it this time. So working working on that. I've got a dual heat kit, the old what they call the triple setup. It's the Mohawk, the Warrior, and you know that whole bunch with that 1 kW's amplifier, linear amp, and working on recapping those and getting them ready for the shack. So, over.
Oh, roger that. Now, you did drop out a little bit there on that transmission, but did come back at the end with about a 10 over my noise level. So, good going there. And let me say threes to you, Tom. Appreciate the shout. And we will be posting this QSO on our QSO-VLOG page on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor, you will find a QSO marked My Group Aircheck, date 10/5/18, frequency 7189. Roger, roger.
Roger that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And 7-3 to you as well. I had some good contacts today. Hope to talk to you further down the line. This is KC9VKV. Be clear and listening.
Roger, roger, Tom. Three's that away, so you have a good day. And this is Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor, with the Friday morning QSO-VLOG recording. This is KC9VKV with Friday morning QSO-VLOG recording. If you have a radio, you want to check the audio on, give us a shout. We'll record it and post it up within the next couple of days on YouTube, where you can go and to YouTube and do a call letter search for KC9VKV. And on that QSO-VLOG page, there's one, we have about 250 QSOs, but there will be one entity marked My Group Aircheck, date 10/5/18, frequency 7189. So this is KC9VKV, standing by. There are a couple of stations out there right at my noise level. There are a couple of stations out there right at my noise level. I would say try. I'll take the strongest one. You guys will have to figure out who that is. This is KC9VKV standing by. Well, unfortunately, neither one were above my noise level, so I couldn't copy anybody. We are, usually run to about noontime, but we got a little late start. But if there's nobody out there that wants to do another air check, we'll wrap it up. But if there is, we'll stand by just for a moment. This is KC9VKV. Now, I did hear somebody out there again, but again, not very strong. But come back and try your call sign again, sir.
Kilo Delta 4, Victor Charlie Papa.
Kilo Delta 4, Victor, and I'm not sure about the rest.
Victor Charlie Papa, 332. And I'm in North Carolina, about 50 miles north of your Fed's place. And I'm getting you good on your 1K and also on your 100 watt.
Roger, sir. I'm copying you about 4 dB above my noise level. Just about 4 dB above my noise level. Come back and tell me a little bit about your radio, sir.
My name is Keith. That's Kilo Echo India Tango Hotel. And I'm running a ICOM 13 Pro, and I'm going into a Barker Williams antenna, and it is oriented mostly east-west.
Okay, Keith, give me the model number of your radio again.
I'm running a ICOM 756 Pro.
756, Roger.
Back to Roger.
Roger, Keith. Well, like I say, we do have conditions that are not exactly good this morning. You went from probably about a 4 above my noise level, from time to time dropping into my noise level. So let me say 3 Zetterway, sir. We do have you on our QSO-VLOG, and we will be posting it in the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor, that will take you to the page. And on that page you'll find one of the QSOs marked My Group Aircheck, date 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. Roger, roger. A station calling hello, the frequency is in use. Roger, roger. Who was the station saying hello?
Apparently he didn't know you were in there.
Can you imagine that? He must not have his antenna hooked up, I would think.
That or either his volume is not turned up.
Roger, roger. I would think his antenna wasn't hooked up.
Anyway, good afternoon, W4DI.
Good afternoon, sir. What's the call again?
W4DII.
W4DII. Roger, roger. What's the name?
Dennis.
A little quick there. Try one more time.
I guess I'm catching your blocks. I guess I might be quick on it. Yeah, Dennis.
Roger, roger, Dennis. Whereabouts are you, sir?
I'm in southeast Georgia, about a mile inland from Jekyll Island.
Oh, roger. Beautiful signal. What kind of signal are you catching on us?
Oh, you got beautiful audio, no problem at all. Nice, strong signal, 9, bumping a 10. Sounds really good.
Roger, roger. You excellent signal also. What radio are you running?
Actually, the same thing as the other gentleman, a Pro 3, ICOM 76 Pro 3.
Doing you a great job. What kind of antenna?
A dipole.
Roger. Just a straight horizontal dipole?
Actually, it's a little bit of an invert, not much. It's not exactly a flat top, not exactly an inverted V. It's flat, it's greater than 120 degrees.
Roger, roger. Now, let me guesstimate. It's running east and west, Roger?
Absolutely.
Roger, roger. I would think so, with the signal you're giving me.
Actually, this is an 80-meter dipole, but it tunes perfectly here on 40.
Roger. Now, you're running antenna tuner?
Yes, I am. Dentron MT3008.
Now, is that fully automatic? You just hit a button and it does it?
No, I've got mine by the numbers. It's the old one, 3008. It's got the dual meter, but I've done some work on the inside and modified it a little bit, but it'll tune a salted string, I believe.
Roger, roger. Some of those guys will do a 6 standing wave. I mean, I guess some of them were birder than that, I was talking to this one guy up in Michigan, I think, during the winter, and he had just put up his new dipole, and unfortunately the rope that he used was a favorite from the local squirrel family, and they did proceed to eat his rope in half of his new dipole, and it was wound up about 2 foot under snow. And after he did a little SWR tuning, I was talking to him. He was giving me about an 8, Roger.
Yeah, sounds like he's got it working again then.
Well, yeah, for 2 foot under snow, it was amazing. I wouldn't have thought that antenna would have gotten out at all.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I have a MFJ 289C, and I am, I love that. I managed to get it to where I'm only using it on 80 meters, because 80 meters is so broad that I want to, I don't want to hang out too much SWR at either end. So I do use it on 80, but I go to bypass on the other bands, and I pick up a 6-position rotary switch. So I have three inverted V's, a loop antenna, a 5/8, and a quarter wave, all tied to that rotary. Roger.
All right, that's good. I just select them right there. As long as you don't have port-to-port bleed over, you're doing good.
Oh, Roger, no problem at all. It's just beautiful, rather than constantly having to tune the antenna tuner. And that's why I went to great lengths to, I've got my 3 inverted V's for 15, 20, and 40 meters. And I have got those down to about a 1.01 to 1. So no tuner needed there. And then I'm on the 10-meter side. I'm using my loop antenna, my 5/8, and the quarter wave, and those are all under 1.3. So no antenna tuner needed for that, Roger.
Oh, definitely. No issues there. That's a good deal there.
So it makes it really nice. I just couldn't imagine life having to use the antenna tuner every time I changed bands. And this way I have the 289C pretty much parked on the center frequency of 80 meters, 3900, because I'm not an extra, I'm just a general. So my frequency bandpass on 80 is 38 to 4. And so it's not really that large, but you know, out to the edges, I'm catching about a 1.3 and 1.4, and so I do want to do a little touch-up. You know, the thing is, you seldom ever get out to the edges. I mean, usually you're well within, you know, the edge frequencies. Roger?
Hey, I agree with you. Some like a tuner, some don't. I agree with that. Then an automatic tuner would be the way to go, of course, but now those get quite pricey as far as that goes. But anyway, a resonant antenna's hard to beat them, sure is. But I like a tuner just in case you are on a band this large and you can move around without any SWR issue.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this MFJ 289C is, you know, it's rated for 3 kW. Probably on a wet day it might do 1500, and it had some issues when I first got it, but my Elmer did give it to me, so you know, I love it. The MFJ at that time was doing a thing called drive-by soldering, and that is, if the coil came within the proximity of a connection, they would just solder the two together there without actually physically attaching the connection. They would just do a drive-by solder. And the problem is that sometimes those antenna tuners get into great difficulties of position as far as tuning the SWR. Like if you were trying to run 40 meters on an 80 meter antenna, you might have a little heating going on in there, and you could tell that that had occurred because when you opened up the SWR box, you would see some of those joints that were kind of a dull, you know, sunken look, you know, as if you might look underneath a little bit further, you would see solder droppings. So I did go back and modify some of that stuff to more reflect a definite run from one place to the other, as opposed to just soldering it as it passed by. Roger?
Now, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's happened to a lot of the boards in a lot of different places other than just yours, or that particular one. But yeah, always, I think it's a very prudent point, is go in and check those joints, because it could be a big problem.
Oh, Roger, Roger. And I never realized just how much heating might occur if you're, again, trying to run a 40 meters on an 80 meter antenna. You are towards the end of the coil there, and so I did find that there was quite a bit of heating going on there. But I did have, it was about a loop and a half that I had in excess of, well, I had about 3 loops to spare, so I took about a loop or so to go back and actually make a good physical connection to the capacitor there, as opposed to just a drive-by. Roger?
Yeah, also, too, this one's not exactly stock, this tuner. It has a 10K continuous 4-to-1 in it, and I've gone in and beefed up several of the cables and the wiring, so it'll take whatever I put in. I've never gotten heat out of it. I've run it, opened her up, checked it, and never get the first bit of warmth out of anything or anywhere.
Oh, Roger, yeah, that's the way it should be. And this also had some pits on the coil, and some of those pits were in, you know, kind of close proximity to each other, and you would have, if you tuned, as you were operating, if you tuned through those pits, you would definitely have a little bounce there of the signal. So I did sandpaper those just a little bit. And the other thing somebody mentioned was that you could probably take that coil and turn it around, and then you would be using an area that probably hadn't been used before. It might be virgin territory, you know, and so rather than going crazy with trying to get rid of the pits, just turn the coil around and use the other end. Roger?
Well, Well, take a look. Now, if you're talking about a roller inductor coil, you'll notice that it's wide space and it tapers. So, see, you might want to take a rethink on that instead of turning it around. So you got to look at the loading of that coil and the proximity of each coil to each other. Notice they're not exactly equal spacing.
Roger, Roger. Now, I don't know. On this 289C, as I recall, it was equal spacing from one end to the other. And, you know, it did have a tracker that ran down the coil, you know, and even if the coil spacing might be different, that tracker is going to follow the coil. Roger, Roger.
Yeah, I understand where you're going, yeah. But just, you know, a little food for thought, something to think about.
Roger. Well, it would be probably my last resort as to, you know, actually getting in there and reversing that coil. It would make a lot more sense to me. I never really had that problem of bounce, you know, too much. It was, you know, fairly stable, except, you know, after I made the modifications to the solder joints. And there was one time I had an arc from the coil to the chassis, probably about in the middle of the coil to the chassis. And you know, once you get an arc burn, that arc burn will be there forever, and it will always be a constant problem for arcing again if it arcs once. And so I did put a plastic CD cover. I loosened the coil and put a plastic CD cover under the coil, and that isolates and insulates the coil winding from possibly arcing to the chassis. Roger.
Very good. Pretty quick move.
Roger, Roger. Did real well, and so I've never had that problem before or after that. Roger.
Sounds like you definitely got the fix worked out.
Roger, I'm just glad that that plastic was as good as it was. You know, I did look closely, and the way it arced was there was a coil support. It was, I don't think it was a screw thing. It was just a physical support in the middle. It was a piece of plastic that ran from the coil area down to the chassis that would keep the coil at X number of centimeters above the frame. And as I looked at it, I could see an carbon arc burn down that plastic. So that's when I said, no, you know, that's just waiting to happen again. So I did that CD cover, and never a problem after that.
Yeah, that carbon tracing can be a booger too, because you know how it'll develop and it'll drive you nuts.
Oh, right. Once you get a carbon burn, you'll have to actually dig it out. You know, you would have to get in there and physically get rid of that carbon. Otherwise, it's a trail right to disaster.
Well, the other thing, too, is just go ahead and replace the pool. You know, or if you have a variable roller inductor, whatever it's off of, just replace it.
Roger. Well, I just grabbed what was at hand, and I had a CD case, and it would fit underneath there without any, you know, undue effort. So I said, well, close enough.
All they need to do is work.
That's it. That's it. And I haven't had a moment's trouble after that at all. Of course, I haven't been trying to run 40 meters on an 80-meter antenna.
Well, I've been doing this particular thing like this for probably, I guess, around 30 years or so. But actually, to give you a little background, I am or was Dino's Tower Service. Been doing this for many years, installing towers and antennas and building them. And I've learned that, well, I've got this one, so it doesn't give me any issue, 40 or 80.
Oh, your dipole is 40 or 80?
Yeah, it's an 80-meter dipole. I play it here on 40, but I don't get any heating in either place.
Oh, roger that. Roger that. Well, you know, my problem was initially my 80-meter dipole was a sloper that went from about 80 foot on the high side out of a tree down to about 18 feet on the low side to a power pole. And the thing that it never would tune correctly. I never could really get that SWR down. I could find the quote dip, but I couldn't get it lower than maybe a 3 or 2, and so that's when I started using the antenna tuner on it. But you know, through operator error, I did about a year ago lose my top position in that tree. It's a long story, but it was operator error, and it was my stupidity that I did lose that position. And that position had been put there by a good friend of mine that put it up there. Let's see, what did he use? I forget, but it was he managed to make it there, and it was just, you know, it was like Babe Ruth. You know, you pointed to a limb and said, "That's where it is," 80 foot up on a tree, and he proceeded to put it there exactly where it should have been. And so it served its purpose well. It just never could really tune it. And then I went through operator error, and I won't say how that happened, but I was using tie wraps, and I was doing a bunch of tuning, and I wasn't really tightening the tie wraps. And about 3 of them slipped, and I lost the whole thing down from the top. So as a makeshift measure, I went to the about the second limb on that tree, which was about 25 feet or so. And that was a big come down from 80 feet to 25 feet, I thought. But lo and behold, after I was running that way, which made the dipole more horizontal than a sloper, much it was a horizontal polarization exactly, all of a sudden, wow, my dip was down to a 1.2 without tuning. I mean, just the same antenna, just running more horizontal than the sloper. 1.2 at almost perfect 3.9 frequency. So I couldn't believe it. So that is the difference between a sloper tuning and the dipole, horizontal dipole antenna tuning, because both sides of that dipole want to be balanced. And that balance is a balance to ground. And when you have the sloper, the one end is much less you know, attuned to the same as the other. So when you bring them both horizontal, then they coincide with each other, and the SWR drops, and so does the, you know, obviously the dip, Roger.
Yeah, you're getting the angle right. Yeah. Like, for instance, if you take a regular dipole, you want to tune it, you can tune it and set the impedance by merely opening and closing the legs of the dipole.
Oh, roger that, roger that. Yeah, and the thing is also, I don't use balance. I just use the choke. So the thing is, you got to be sure that you get that choke in there before you start doing small SWR adjustments, because that choke in line will affect the SWR, particularly when you're right down to that 1.1 area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you want to tune it, cut it to length, use your analyzer. That's what you use. So that's what I use. I'm on number 9, by the way, of those analyzers. But they work real well.
Roger that. Roger that. Well, it's all, you know, it's all interesting and everything. And, you know, the more you work with it, the more you, you know, develop a feel for the tuning. Now, on those inverted Vs, I use a tuning method of SWR adjustments on the ground side and frequency adjustments on the high side, and I go back and forth and walk that down. Those 3 inverted Vs are running 1.01 to 1, Roger.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and so I think there's not much that can beat a resonant wire antenna as far as radiation efficiency.
You're looking at a zero gain, zero loss antenna. It doesn't show any either way, but it's hard to beat. When a resonant antenna, you can't get around it.
Oh, roger that. Now, you know, and antenna tuners are just a way to match a good radio to a poor antenna system, just to keep the radio happy, but it doesn't really affect the efficiency of the antenna at all.
No, not really. But then again, the length you cut it, that's what's going to come into play. What resonant length are you at up there? That's relative.
Roger. Now, you know, my tuning method of doing the SWR on the negative side and the on frequency on the high side, you know, after it was all said and done and the smoke cleared, I looked up and it did seem to me that the positive side, the high side of the inverted V might have been just a little bit, maybe 10 or 15% longer than the negative side, you know. I don't know, but you know, I got a nice 1.01 dip at the center frequency, like on this one, 7237. You know, I'm running about a 1.01 to 1, so you know, I can't argue that, Roger.
Yeah, well, yeah, it looks good in the numbers, but here's the thing you're not taking a look at, and that's your pattern. Anytime both sides are not equal, you are fooling with the pattern of your antenna. Easy neck your pattern and see what happens on your computer.
Roger that. Well, all I know is that I'm good from Montreal to Miami and from New York to New Mexico, so it seems to be fairly non-discriminatory on area, Roger.
Yeah, it could be. Like I say, just for food for thought, just run it through the EasyNet program, set it up and run it through. But you'll see it does alter the pattern. That's why you want to keep both ends equal length, and also whatever on a dipole, whatever you've got the right side height above ground, the left side needs to be equal above ground, even if it's on a sloping hill.
Roger. Well, I'm doing most of my my three inverted V's at pretty much the same height. I converted some of my middle guy wires to inverted V's just because of space requirements. So they're all at vertically rather, about the same height. And they all exhibit pretty much the same slope as far as the inverted part of it. So, you know, it's all working out, and seems to be, like on this one here, is, you know, fairly non-directional. So, gosh, what more could I ask for?
Not a whole lot. You're playing well. I mean, no problem. I haven't heard you on the other bands, but this one right here, I mean, there's been a couple of lulls, but you've never dropped more than an S unit or so.
Roger. I'm copying you now at 9 dB, or they're so above my noise level. So you've been up all the time. I can't really give you an actual S-meter reading because I'm not running my radio that way. It is, you know, I have the RF gain turned down to just above my AGC compression, and so, you know, obviously the meter it's not going to give me an accurate reading in that way, Roger.
Oh, well, the key to the whole thing is communication. As long as you can hear me and I can hear you, doesn't matter what the meter says, communication is made.
Oh, that's a Roger. That is a Roger. And, you know, that's the whole thing also that, you know, folks just starting out in radio don't seem to understand is that first about resonant antennas. They want to just string out a piece of wire, use the auto tuner in the radio, or, you know, an outboard antenna tuner and call that close enough. And then, you know, they don't necessarily consult their ALC reading, so you know, and they change mics without going back and checking their ALC to be sure that they're in the mid scale at least, or maybe a 2/3 scale on their ALC, and mic equalization has a lot to do with, you know, being able to communicate legibly. That's the thing, you know. And I found a little top-end EQ and a little bottom roll. I use close mic proximity, and so I have a bass buildup, and so you have to roll that out, otherwise you sound like Mr. Bassman there. So there's a lot of things that, you know, the guy coming in just from the cold into amateur radio may not understand, and that's why, you know, the position of Elmer's to be able to help these people out is very important.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing you touched on there too, which none of them do anymore, not old school like we used to be, where you had to actually draw everything and put it out. But the bottom line is these guys, they read a book and it's multiple choice and that's it. I think one requirement for a new ham, he should know the ARRL antenna book front to back.
Yeah, Roger. Well, I mean, but, you know, it's, again, how much can you expect the average person to juggle trying to get into a hobby? Whereas, you know, if we get them in, then we have a chance to, you know, to educate them as to, you know, what they need to know. You know, it's like you can run a station at 100 watts or 90 watts, and unprocessed audio. But you should not be surprised when your signal is less than perfect at 300 or 400 miles away. So if one gets serious about being able to communicate on a regular basis of, above noise level, then it's going to necessitate kicking up the power a little bit, doing a little work on your EQ, and making sure that your ALC is in shape, and possibly, without audio processing, the average percent of peak modulation is about 30%. So they might want to consider maybe kicking in about maybe a 3 out of 10 on their compressor, about a 3 out of 10 or a 30 out of 100, just to barely engage the compressor a little bit, just to start fattening up that dynamic range. Roger?
Sorry, on the phone. Be right back. W40 out.
And this is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor with the Friday morning QSO-VLOG. We are on the air now recording our QSO-VLOG. If you have a station you want to check out, give us a call. We'll put you in line and get a recording on you and then post it up on YouTube in the next couple of days. And if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will open up the QSO-VLOG page, and on that page you'll find a QSO marked My Group Aircheck. And the date is 10/5/18, and the frequency is 7189. This is KC9VKV.
Whiskey 4 Foxtrot Zulu Tango.
Whiskey 4, what was the rest?
Foxtrot Zulu Tango.
Foxtrot Zulu Tango. Roger, roger. This is KC9VKV. What's the name there?
Name is Lynn. Lima Yankee November, located at South North, about an hour above the Florida line, sir.
And South Georgia, is that a Roger?
Roger, roger.
Okay, so I have you about 2 or 3 dB above my noise level right now, Roger.
Roger, sounds good. Run a little 718 on 100 watts into a very cheap mic.
Roger. Well, from what I can hear, the audio sounds good. So, even though it may be a cheap mic, it's doing you a good job, Roger.
Roger, I looked it up on eham.net and some Axis CM3. I think the price on this thing is about $49, but sounds pretty good, I hope.
Oh, Roger, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. I don't know what kind of EQ you're necessarily running it to offset the cheapness of the microphone, but you are exceeding, Roger.
Roger, just thought I'd drop by. You have a good day. I really deserve to find the call.
Roger, roger, and we'll be posting this QSO on YouTube in the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up the QSO-VLOG page, and on that page there will be one QSO marked My Group Aircheck 10/5/18, frequency 7189. Roger, roger.
Yes, sir. Sounds really good. I'll do that. You have a good day, okay?
Roger, roger. This is KC9VKV.
Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Radio Bravo.
Radio Bravo station, go ahead.
How you doing, Jim? This is Bob in Wisconsin.
Howdy doody, Bob in Wisconsin. How's it going up that way?
Going okay. Been listening to you guys talk, and it's been interesting. I don't know if I have a little bit of RF. I've kind of moved the shack around a little bit and trying to get things fixed up again. We had a flood down here, and now we have 4 inches of water, and it took my tower computer, but we're getting back up and running, okay?
Roger, roger. I'm so sorry to hear that. There's nothing more discouraging than a flooded situation there, particularly water in the radio room, the radio shack. Not a good situation there, and I'm glad to hear you coming back. The thing is, possibly, if you might have AF and the RF, would be to sync a few grounds. I have 3 grounds. I'm not unhappy to say I do have 3 grounds. I have one ground that is strictly for the HF side, and then I have 2 other grounds that are tied together for the rest of the shack, because I just couldn't imagine I just couldn't imagine running my my audio preamp ground to the same ground that I have my HF amp, my Heathkit SB220 at a KW on the same ground with my mic preamp. Roger?
Hey, roger that. I have separate circuits going to the amp and separate circuit for the radio. But I'm running a 102-foot doublet off the 450 ohm ladder line. And RF it's come and gone, and I think I'm okay right now, but I'm not exactly sure why. Listening to you guys is interesting. I've been a general for probably almost 2 years now. And how's this station sounding out there?
It sounds good, sir. Sounds good. You know, we do not have the best conditions in the world. What kind of power are you running?
Running about 600 watts. I'm running a TS590SG off of a AL811, and I'm using the tuner. Okay. I guess you figured that one out with the doublet.
Roger, I cover you at about 8 dB above my noise level, so it's a pretty good signal. Now that's max, and you have faded down from time to time, but that last transmission you were 8 dB above my noise level.
Hey, okay, yep, you're running about 8 to 9 dB here too, and you're sounding real good, and I've heard you out there before.
Roger, Roger. Well, thanks for the check there, and I think you're doing great for the comeback. Again, on that ground system, some folks run that copper pipe down the back of the desk. And the problem is with that if you have a 6-foot desk and you run that copper pipe, you have a 6-foot ground differential between the one end of the pipe to the other end of the pipe. And, I prefer to use what's called a spider connection, and that is I take all of my grounds to exactly the same place, and I use what's called a split bolt, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a bolt that has a split in it with a nut, and you put all these wires in there and you tighten the nut. Now I have a big one because my ground cables from all of my radios and stuff, I'm using RG8. Now, we're talking about an RF ground, not an AC power amp ground, but an RF ground. So for RF, a piece of RG8 looks like about a 1/2-inch copper pipe. So I use this RG8, and I have end connectors that fasten to the radio, and then down at the bottom I shave back about 3 inches on the RG8, put them all together on a split bolt, tighten it up, and so I have an absolute zero space connection for mass connection for all of my cables. There is no 6-foot difference between one cable and the other. They're all at the same place at the same time. Roger?
Hey, roger that. Yeah, I'm running a split bolt, but I'm only running 12-gauge wire, so that might be part of the problem. The run isn't very long. It's probably about 8 feet maybe. Are you hearing any buzz on that end at all?
No, audio is clean. Audio is clean. Yeah, if you can find a piece of old RG8 and just, they have, I think at Home Depot, they have end caps, which, you can put you trim out about a 1/2 inch of the RG8, put it inside this connector, then tighten it down with it has a little screw adjustment, and then it has a flange with a hole in it that you can easily attach it to your ground position on your radio. Roger?
Hey, roger that. Yep. The RF thing in the beginning was a hassle, and then I was running the 450 ohm into the coax, the regular coax, and I changed that, so I ran the ladder line all the way to the tuner, and that helped a lot. Some of it could be I'm running the EQ Plus W2IHY, and if I have that thing turned up a little bit too much, that will cause some trouble.
Roger, but that's an excellent test. What I find and what I use now, it's taken me a little while to solve all of my AF and the RF or RF and the AF problems, but I do use a ART preamp. The condition here is a homebrew condenser microphone into an ART preamp into a 3rd octave equalizer up to the tabletop and a 6-position rotary switch to discern which radio, and a toggle on toggle off switch, then into the older Yaesu 990. And I have on the preamp, I have about 10 dB headroom from where the input volume is, or the input level control. And so my test is I will run my mic gain up 10 dB above my normal position, just to check it and make sure I have headroom as far as RF and the AF. Roger?
Kind of understand that. I kind of get that. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I get you. Yeah, I got the preamp. You're talking audio preamp, not an input preamp.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm running a condenser microphone, so it requires. I'm running a homebrew condenser microphone, so it requires a phantom power supply. And for $50, you know, the ART preamp is just an amazing little device that furnishes the phantom voltage for the condenser microphone. Plus, it has. I'm running actually balanced in and balanced out, unbalanced out, but it has the capabilities of balanced, unbalanced in, or balanced, unbalanced out. So it's a very flexible, you know, device, and for $50, it's hard to beat. Roger, Roger.
Yeah, you're sounding good. You're definitely sounding good. So you think I shouldn't touch anything? I'm tempted to press the button here, but as we all are. But I guess at this point, if I'm getting you good audio, I'll probably leave them alone. No compression to the EQ plus, and not through the radio at all.
From what I can see on your signal, you do have a very good dynamic range. You know, unprocessed audio is usually running about an average of 30% peak modulation. And as we continue to fatten that signal, our average percent of modulation increases. When we get down to about the 3 dB dynamic range, we're probably running about 70% average peak modulation. So it's almost the loudness of your station will almost double when you process to the point of having about a 3 dB dynamic range. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, through compression. You have the ALC, if you run that at between halfway and 2/3, and then introduce maybe about a 3 out of 10 level of your compressor, or a 30 out of 100, you know, just barely engage the compressor, you will start to fatten up that audio. From what I can see of your audio, it looks fairly fat, Roger. You slipped down there to about a dB above my noise level. Try that again.
Yeah, I was saying I'm getting buzzed through the monitor, but apparently you guys aren't getting that. You're starting to fade on me a little bit, so did you copy that?
Yeah, I did. And you know, it's amazing. There's so much band noise that as long as your noises are under 20 dB or 30 dB, you know, people aren't going to hear those. You might hear them on earphones as you monitor your station closely, but on out, you know, they're not going to hear that. It's only when it becomes like a -10, -8 that you know, folks tend to realize that you may have anomalies in your audio. Roger?
Hey, Roger that. Maybe I just turn the monitor down a little bit, and I'll be happy with that. This is Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Right Radio Bravo with KC9VKV.
Roger, Roger. Well, conditions have changed somewhat, and you've dropped down now to about just a couple of dB above my noise level. So let me say 3 is, we'll hopefully be on the band next week, next Friday at between 10:30 and noon. So if you get a chance, give me a shout. We are recording our QSO-VLOG, and we will be posting it up on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring you to our QSO-VLOG page, and there will be one QSO marked My Group Aircheck 10518 and the frequency 7189. Roger, Roger.
Roger that, Jim. Appreciated. This is Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Radio Bravo. You got Bob in Wisconsin, and we're clear. 73.
Roger, Roger, Bob. 3 is in Wisconsin, and that last signal, you were 6 dB above my noise level. So have a good day, sir. 3s. And this is KC9VKV getting ready to wrap up. If there's anybody else that wants a quick air check, give me a shout. 2 stations, same level. I couldn't copy either call sign. Try it again. Well, there we go again. I'm sorry. You both are at the same level, and I'm not sure how to handle this. I would just say try again. Stagger your call signs. Maybe I can copy one or the other.
Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha.
The Whiskey 7 station. Try your call sign again.
Yeah, Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha. Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha.
Roger, Roger. Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha. This is Jim, Juliet, Indy Mike, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor, Kilo Victor. Where might you be and what's your name?
Yeah, name here is Robert. I'm located in Gastonia, North Carolina, and that is exactly 20 miles due west of Charlotte.
Roger, Roger, Robert. What's your radio?
Yeah, I have a Yozu 3000 with a Hall PR789.
Well, Robert, the conditions are not good this morning. You dropped down from being able to copy you down into my noise level. Try it one more time, please.
Yeah, I'm running a Yozu FTVX 3000 with a Hall PR781 to a 40-meter dipole at about 40 feet and running no amp, just 100 watts.
Roger. Yeah, you were about 3 dB at that time above my noise level, so it was working pretty good. Let me check something here. Audio check 1 2 3 4 5. Audio check 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, 1 2 3 4 5. Anyway, just I need a coffee break, I think. Come back, Robert, and tell me about your antenna system.
Yeah, the antenna is just a homebrew dipole. It's a 40-meter dipole, resonant dipole, and yeah, that's pretty much it, just on 40 meters. I've got an 80-meter dipole, and then I also have a MFJ cobweb antenna, and that does 20 meters down to 10, and that's all the bands I'm running now. Don't have a real estate for 160 meter antenna, but yeah, pretty much I'm doing things from 80 all the way to 440 here.
Roger, Roger, Robert. Last transmission was 3 dB above my noise level. Yeah, that is usually the deciding factor. If you're a dedicated ham operator, space is usually the problem that you have as far as getting your 2,000-foot rhombic antenna going. So, but we all have to do within the confines of what we have to operate on. Roger, Roger.
Well, I do have an empty lot behind my property, but the problem is it's owned by the city, so I don't think I want to run I could run a 180-meter halfway dipole across my property than that one, but I don't want to do that, yeah, because I don't want to get the city on me, you know what I mean?
Oh, Roger, Roger, yes. Don't get the city upset, man. They'll make your life a living hell for sure. They have all the time in their world and all the money in their world to make your life difficult if you cross certain boundaries as far as the city is concerned. So that is one of those limiting factors that you have to deal with, but we all have to do the best we can. And like I say, if we had any decent conditions, you'd probably be giving me about an 8 or so, right?
Roger that. Yeah, you're consistently holding 10 dB over on me, so are you able to hear me good enough to give me
No, not really. You are about that time, last transmission, about 2 dB above my noise level. Let me drop down to 100 watts and show you that we're down to like 100 watts now. So this is pretty much, should be representative of what you're giving me. That will come up on a KW. Back to the KW. Roger, roger.
Roger that, yeah. You went down to about a 7 on the S meter, up to about 10 dB over. Yeah, I can see the... well, I guess one thing I'd ask you, it's not too bassy, is it? Because I do know I've got a big peak in my voice around 100 hertz, and I've tried to notch that out, but, you know, you just don't know what someone tells you.
Roger, you're listening to it, and now you don't want to notch it out, you want to roll it out. If you notch it out, you may have the opportunity of other lower frequencies coming back to haunt you. So you do want to roll off that bottom end. So I'm assuming you have a three position equalization situation, or 2. Anyway, on the low frequency, I would drop that another couple of clicks. I would drop that 2 clicks from where you were on the bottom end. Roger, roger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this radio, well, it has a processor in it, and then it's got a parametric EQ that you would, well, you have 2 different EQs, really. You have one with the processor and one without. So, the one good thing with this Yaesu, they have a piece of control software that you can actually go in and bring up the graph. So I guess notch is not really the right term. I guess I did roll it off because I am running 4KY here. So, yeah, I guess I probably didn't use the right term because I did go in there and roll that off. But, yeah, I'll try to bring that down a couple more clicks and see how that does.
Roger, roger. Now, you did fade up a little bit and fade down, but when you faded up, your signal is really nice. I mean, you've got good dynamic range. You know, it's a nice fast signal. You know, I would say just a click or 2 on the bottom end, roll off, you know, more, and see where that goes. But, you know, as it is, it sounds pretty good. Roger, roger.
Yeah, and from what I understand, too, these hall microphones are pretty rich down on the bottom end, too, because I have used it to record some videos, audio on some videos that I do. I'm into genealogy, and I do some things with DNA, and yeah, I had to turn the bass down a little bit on. Yeah, it seems to be pretty rich down on that bottom end.
Roger, roger. Now, some of his microphones have a built-in roll-off on the microphone itself. Does your mic have a roll-off filter?
No, it doesn't have any kind of filtering in it. It's just a straight dynamic microphone. But I heard you when you were talking to the man earlier, said you had a homebrew microphone. Now, I've heard of people doing homebrew radios and amps and tuners, but I think you're the first one I've heard that did a homebrew microphone.
Roger, roger. Well, you know, I know what I'm looking for as far as the end product, and I know what I have to do to get there. So this condenser microphone is a Electret capsule microphone, but I have I'm looking for you know, a little warm upper end, you know, top end. So I have a little of my homebrew engineering. It's a little extension piece that goes in front of the element, and I call it my crisper. And what this does, it accentuates. It's like a little tube. I don't know if you know what a phono plug is, but the phono plug has a piece of plastic that fits over the phono plug, and it's round, and it's about 2 inches long. And I cut off the skinnier part, and I just use the tube part, which is like oh, not quite half an inch, between a quarter of an inch and a half an inch, somewhere in there. And it just fits over the capsule front and elongates the front end of the microphone about 3/4 of an inch is all I use. And what that does, it shapes the audio going into the capsule by increasing the upper mids. And when you get to 10 kc, you have about, I would say a 7 dB boost over flat in that microphone output. And then, that gives me a head start on where I'm going EQ-wise. And that goes into the ART preamp. And I do run the ART preamp. This is an MP3 Studio. And I do run the limiter switch on that. And so you have this brightness going into that, but the limiter on the ART preamp holds the excursion down to a more flat situation, so it just sounds brighter. And then from the output of the ART preamp, it goes into a third octave equalizer for further shaping. Roger?
Oh, okay, Roger that. But I've looked at your QRZ page too, and I noticed it looks like you got this start doing little 5-watt station at the house. I kind of did the same thing when I was younger. I guess I got to start listening to shortwave, and then I did my own little station later. So, but I understood most of what you were saying, but yeah, I've been playing around with radio and audio gear most of my life, so I'm just not, I'm not as technical with the sound end of it as you are, but, you come about a phono plug, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there, so, yeah, I have a turntable on all the records I've ever bought. I still have them. Actually, I even have an old 1926, phonograph, the kind you crank up, mechanical type, so it still works. It needs a little bit of work done on it, but it still works. So, yeah, I see you got your QSO-VLOG here. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, but when you were talking about here, I guess when you were all about being with the 50-watt station, I guess that was an AM station, Roger?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. Try that one more time about the wattage of the station.
Yeah, I know on your QRZ page you said you were like a director of a 50-watt station, so I'm assuming that was an AM radio station, right?
I think that's a 5-watt station. When I was 12, I was running, I'll tell you, there's a tube that means a great deal to me because it was my first AM transmitter tube. It's called a 117L7. You probably have never heard of that tube, and there's only one person that I've talked to in 50 years that actually knows what a 117L7 oscillator is, but it is a tube that the filaments are 117 volts. So there is no power transformer in this, but it is a tube in a box, a metal box with holes. You can see the tube filaments lighting. And the one I got had been owned by a military person, a technical military person that had made certain modifications to this 11707 oscillator to make it put out a bunch more power than theoretically what it should. And he had given it to my mother. She was secretary for a bunch of Air Force brass in MATS, which was called the Military Air Transport Service, and she had mentioned as a child, my abilities and interest, and so one of these guys brought this oscillator, homebrew, well, not a homebrew, but a commercially built wireless transmitter, 117L7N, and said, gave it to her and said maybe he'd like this. There's just two things. First, operate it on a clear part on the band, so you don't get into trouble, interfering with other stations. And the other thing is always keep a good antenna on it, because it will burn up if you don't keep a good antenna getting the power that it generates out into the antenna. So on that latter point, I did make it a point to try to always have a good antenna tied to it, to the point of running a 300-foot long wire antenna out of a pine tree to the pump house. The pump house was my current location for my radio studio. It was small, but there was enough to have my radio console, which I built, which was through 4 amplifiers tied together, the audio tied together, to make a quasi mixer. And I think I was using a telephone microphone for the audio, which surprisingly 50 years later still sounds good because of the frequency response of the telephone element microphone that I was using. Just sounds so good even by today's standards. It just has a lot of cut and clarity to it that you wouldn't find with a regular microphone and audio system without that. So that was my childhood there, and that radio, when I run that 300-foot long wire antenna on it, I picked up probably another 4 or 5 miles. So that booger did get out maybe 6-7 miles. Roger?
Roger that. Yeah. I know the one I done was on FM, but hey, do you still have that transmitter?
No. No. And I was so surprised when I had a QSO with this other guy that mentioned that he once had a 117L7 oscillator, I said, wow, it was like old home week, Roger.
Yeah, Roger that. Well, I'll have to ask my uncle if he's heard of that too, because he was a technician during the Vietnam War, when actually he still runs an electronic repair company today. Well, he's semi-retired, but he still shows up every day. But yeah, I never have really dealt with tubes, but yeah, he knows a lot about tubes. So I know. Now he's been redoing old jukeboxes for as long as I can remember. I mean, I know even when I was a little kid and go to his house, he'd always have old jukeboxes, and those all have two audio amplifiers in them. So yeah, but I'll have to ask him if he knows anything about that tube. He he may. He really doesn't get into radio, but yeah, he may have heard about it. Yeah, I'll go and see him. I'll have to ask him about it. I need to go see him anyway. I haven't gone and seen him in about a month. So, but yeah, I really haven't dealt with tubes really at all. So, but yeah, I just got my ham license back in 2011, but I didn't get on HS till last year, last March, back in 2017. I started out with the AZ SC450. And now I've got the 450, the 3000, and I got a portable 891. So I had to stop myself. I got into a buying boom there, but yeah, I had to throttle back. So anyway, I bought enough ham gear for a while. I need to stop.
Roger that. Well, our conditions have changed quite a bit now, so let me say 3 is out of the way. It's been a pleasure talking with you there, and I appreciate you dropping by. And we will be posting this QSO on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our QSO-VLOG page, and one of the QSOs will be marked My Group Aircheck, dated 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. Roger.
I try to catch you next week if I can. yeah, I'll check that YouTube channel out. But hey, I enjoyed the QSO, and yeah, thanks for audio tape there. I'll bump that back a couple notches and see what that does. But yeah, it's interesting QSO, and yeah, maybe that other guy can get in. Got a little long-winded here, but all right, this is W7CSA to KC9VKV 7-3s, and enjoyed it.
Roger, Roger. 3's up that way. You have a good day, and we'll catch you later. And this is a Kilo Charlie 9, Victor Kilo Victor, wrapping up our QSO-VLOG session for this morning. If there's anybody else that wants a quick air check, give me a shout.
Kilo Charlie 0, Hotel Victor.
Hotel Victor station?
Yeah, this is KC0 SHV, Kilo Charlie 0, Sierra Hotel Victor. How do I sound?
Sound pretty good. Where are you, sir?
I'm in north central Iowa, about 60 miles north of Des Moines. How about you?
I'm up around Louisville, Kentucky. I'm just across the river from Louisville in Indiana. And your signal is about a 3 dB above my noise level. Last check. Roger?
Okay, I'm going to turn my amplifier off and see how it sounds from that. Okay, now I'm down to just 100 watts. How's that?
Let me see if I got my braille out. You are about a dB and a half to 2 dB above my noise level. Let me give you an example. I'm down to 100 watts now. This is 100 watts, so that's pretty much what you sound to me. And this is back to the KW, Roger.
Okay, I'm not running a KW, but the amplifier audio will help.
Roger, are you now on the amplifier?
Yeah, roger that, yeah.
You're about 5 dB above my noise level now. And what part of the world are you again?
I'm up in north central Iowa, about 60 miles north of Des Moines.
Roger, Roger. And what kind of output power are you running now?
I've got a Yaesu FT450 going into a Collins 30L1.
Roger, Roger. Well, you know, there's two things. There's the RF that gets you there somewhat, and the audio, you know, and sometimes we need a little audio processing to help the power situation out a tad. You might want to check with your ALC to see if you're running a mid-scale to 2/3 open on your ALC. And past that, you might want to engage your compressor possibly at about a 3 out of 10, just if you want to maximize your capabilities. Roger?
Thanks for that input. I will check that out and get that set.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, I would suggest if you want, you know, really looking to maximize your audio from here to there, that if you do engage your compressor at about a 3, just barely minimum 3, and then consult your ALC to. Once you get the compressor in line, even at a 3, adjusting your ALC is so much easier because the meter is calmed down a great deal because the compressor is, you know, fattening your signal up, and then making that final adjustment on the ALC, you want to bring your mic level up to where you're running a mid-scale to 2/3 on your ALC. Roger, Roger. Okay, kind of faded out now, so let me say 3's that away, sir, and thanks for checking in. And like I say, we will be here usually each Friday morning between 10:30 and noon. We have elongated somewhat this morning, but we did get a little late start. We have quite a bit of stuff going on around the shack, and so we had certain things we had to do before we could get on. So we got on about 10:40 instead of 10:30, so we expanded just a little bit. But usually Friday mornings between 10:30 and noon, we will be running our QSO-VLOG recording session. Roger, Roger?
Roger that. I didn't catch your name.
The name here is Jim, Juliet, India, Mike, and the call sign is Kilo Charlie 9, Victor, Kilo, Victor. And like I say, we have been running recording on this session, and we will be posting it on our YouTube page, our QSO page, within the next couple of days. And you can find it if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search, Kilo Charlie 9, Victor, Kilo, Victor, and look, that'll open our QSO-VLOG page, and on that page you'll find one QSO-VLOG called My Group Aircheck 10/5/18, which is the date, and the frequency 7189. Roger?
Roger, I'll check that out. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Name here is Kyle, Kilo Yankee Lima Echo. 7-3, appreciate your help.
Roger, Roger, Kyle. In that last transmission, for part of it, you were like 6 dB above my noise level. So for a few words there, you I could hear you excellent. So like I say, if you go to the our QSO-VLOG page, and you'll be able to hear it. Threes to you, and we'll catch you later. It's KC9VKV.
7-3, Jim. KC0SHV.
And that was 7.5 dB above noise. 3 away. Catch you later. It's KC9VKV. Station call code.
Jim, this is Kilo 4, November Golf, Quebec. Tell me, have you ever heard of a 6V6 oscillator and a 513 rectifier?
Now, I think you said 6 Victor 6. Is that a Roger?
6 Victor 6.
Roger, Roger. It's a audio output tube usually, and Big Brother is the 6L6.
Roger. I got started downtown with a homebrew. Used a 513 rectifier and a 6V6 oscillator, and tuned it into I'll say a long wire about 100 feet long, and first contacted about 700 miles away.
Roger, Roger. Now, I'm getting just a little bit of distortion on your audio, Roger.
Roger. I thought I had it out, but apparently not.
Sounds like almost like a little AC ripple in there. Sounds like just a little bit of like AC ripple. I can't really actually hear the tone, the 60 cycles, but I can hear the ripple in your audio, Roger.
Yeah, Roger. I know how to fix that and see what I can do about it, but I do appreciate you letting me know. I guess this old radio just about served its purpose. Got an old Kenwood TS-140F working into a Buckmaster antenna.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, the question of distortion has come up from time to time here. And you know, the thing is, when you have poor conditions, say if you're transmitting 90 to 100 watts, and you have poor conditions getting your signal 350, 400 miles away because of poor conditions, then that RF is not disappearing. I mean, it's going up into the sky, and the thing is that the primary reflective layer is not reflecting back to Earth very well, so that's why we have poor conditions. But your signal continues to go up and engages other layers of reflective atmosphere, and possibly some of those are operating to some degree to reflect the signal back to Earth. The problem is that there is a time differential between your primary reflection and your secondary reflection, and when those two signals coincide on the ground, because one is different time relationship to the other, phase relationship to the other, it can represent canceling sometimes, and so then you have audio distortions occurring. Now, I'm not sure that's happening, because usually those distortions are transitory and come and go. You know, yours pretty much seems to be consistent as far as that distortion. Roger?
Yeah, Roger. Well, you gave me something to check and something to look at, and I do appreciate it. And we don't like to be on the air if we're not, if we don't have a decent signal. So I'll let let you go, Jim. You have a great day, and I'll try to find your web page. KK4MGQ, the undecided after you.
Roger, Roger, MGQ. Yeah, if you go to YouTube and do that call letter search, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will take you to our QSO-VLOG page. And on that page, you'll find one QSO marked My Group Aircheck, date 10/5/18, frequency 7189. And you will be able to hear what I was hearing as far as that distortion. So from that point, you'll be able to figure out what you need. But you can, obviously you want to hear exactly what it is. So we'll be posting this within the next couple of days. So threes to you, and we'll catch you later. This is KC9VKV.
KK4MGQ.
And with that, it's 1 o'clock or thereabouts, and we're going to wrap up our QSO-VLOG page for this morning. We've enjoyed it. Got a little later start, but we ran a little later to make up for that. So anyway, we're going to wrap up, and we'll see everybody next Friday at 10:30. But usually we operate on 7189 between 10:30 and noon with our QSO-VLOG. And for this one, if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up the QSO-VLOG page of ours. And look for this QSO will be identified as My Group Aircheck 10/5/18, which is the date, and 7189, which is the frequency. So with that, we'll bid everyone adieu. We want to thank everybody that checked in, and we'll see you next Friday. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. We'll be clear. There was somebody on Vox. Who was that on Vox, real quick?
Kilowatt Fox 8 Bravo Delta. I just dropped my mic.
Roger, Roger, Bravo Delta Mike. I heard that. Boy, you got a good signal, Roger.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was listening to you, Jim. I was listening to you, and I had a good time listening to you, and I tried to break in a few times, but I couldn't make it. But that was just me moving my microphone on the desk.
Roger, well, you are now 8 dB above my noise level, so you got a really good signal, Roger.
Okay, vertical antenna, and let's see, yeah, I'm running about 500 watts now. 500 watts over.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, it takes 500 to make a village. I mean, this band is. It's been so flaky for so long. You would think that 100 watts is the backbone of the amateur band, probably. And you would think that 100 watts, with good conditions, would get you an 8 or a 9 at 300 or 400 miles. But right now, the conditions are so bad that 90 to 100 watts, 400 miles away would give you maybe a dB and a half, 2 dB above somebody's noise level. So if one is serious about making contacts with their radio, unfortunately, it's going to take 500 to a kilowatt to be able to reliably do that. And then in addition to that, a little audio processing goes a long way to help fortify that power. Roger?
Well, I'm running a K3 driver and the Maritron LED with a tire tube, and also my microphone's a Shure 444. Over.
Roger, Roger. Well, you've got the EQ set where you're rolling off quite a bit of the bottom end, and that sounds good and has a nice cut to it. So, all in all, I think you got it going on, Roger.
Okay, thank you very much. I respect your opinion. I heard you take it all the time with the fellas, and very good job. Thank you. Name is Ken. Kilo Echo November. I'll let you go get lunch. Over.
Roger, Roger, starving, Ken. And we'll be posting this QSO-VLOG on our YouTube page. If you go to YouTube and do that call letter search, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will take you to our page. And on that page, you'll find a QSO entitled My Group Aircheck 10/5/18, frequency 7189. And we'll be posting that within the next couple of days, Roger.
Roger. Okay, but the 7518, is that what you said?
I'm sorry?
What was the date and time on that air check?
Oh, Roger, it's our date right now, 10-5-18, and the frequency is 7189, and that will be in the call, in the title. Because we usually deal with so many folks and so many call signs that we can't put all those call signs in our title, Roger. So we put a common denominator, which is today's date and the frequency, Roger.
Okay, yeah, very good. I copied. It was my fault. It was my fault. I just couldn't hear it. Well, it's my birthday month, so I should remember that. I was 80 years old this last week. So, hey, thank you very much, James. KF8DD10 in Michigan, 73 to you.
Roger, Roger. Well, you're just a little bit ahead of me. You know, I got you're maybe 3-4 years ahead of me, so we're all headed down the same path. We'll say 3 years. I got to get lunch. Catch you guys later. Thanks for everybody that participated, and we'll see you next Friday at 10:30 a.m. It's KC9VKV. Be clear.